The security footage was stark and clear. 30 feet of distance between the camera and the confrontation, but every sound carried with brutal clarity through Providence Municipal Court. The impact of palm against cheek, the metallic clatter of a Marine Corps cap hitting pavement, the scrape of worn fabric being kicked across concrete. Judge Frank Caprio pressed pause on the video player. 10:30 on a November morning in 2019. Case number 2019 CR 4521. The courtroom held its collective breath. "Miss Holloway," the judge said, his voice measured and quiet. "Is that you in this recording?" Brittany Holloway was 24 years old. Designer handbag, tailored blazer. The confident posture of someone who had never truly faced consequences. She was also the daughter of Providence Police Chief Robert Holloway, though that fact would prove more complicated than she imagined. "He grabbed me first," she said, lifting her chin. "I was defending myself." "We'll address that claim," Judge Caprio replied. "But first, I need you to answer a question. Do you know who this man is, the man you struck?" Brittany's expression flickered with irritation. "Some guy blocking my parking spot. He was just sitting there." In the front row of the gallery sat the man in question. William Crawford, 51 years old, occupied a wheelchair with practiced ease. His legs ended at the knees. His hands, weathered and calloused from years of physical labor, rested on the wheels. He wore a simple flannel shirt, clean jeans, and a jacket covered in military patches, unit insignias, combat ribbons, a purple heart pin positioned over his heart. Beside his wheelchair, a yellow Labrador in a service vest sat with perfect discipline. The name stitched on the vest read, Sergeant. The dog's handler, the man Brittany had called pathetic, hadn't looked at her once since entering the courtroom. His gaze remained fixed on something beyond the windows, something distant and unreachable. On the bench beside Billy, Crawford sat a bouquet of pink roses. The petals were wilted now, browning at the edges. They had been fresh that Saturday morning in October. They never reached their intended destination. In the back corner of the courtroom, far from the family section and the curious onlookers, Police Chief Robert Holloway sat alone. He wore a gray civilian suit, no uniform, no visible badge. He had arrived 30 minutes before the scheduled hearing time. None of the court officers had approached him. None of his colleagues sat nearby. He had chosen invisibility deliberately. The court clerk, Mrs. Patricia Sullivan, read the formal charges into the record. The State of Rhode Island versus Brittany Michelle Holloway. Charges include simple assault, harassment, disorderly conduct, and violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act for harassment of a disabled person. Brittany's attorney, Charles Whitmore, stood immediately. "Your Honor, my client maintains she acted in self-defense. Mr. Crawford grabbed her wrist, and she responded instinctively. We request all charges be dismissed." "We'll hear the evidence first, Mr. Whitmore." "Of course, Your Honor. However, I'd like the court to note that my client has no prior criminal record and comes from an upstanding family." "I'm aware of who her father is," Judge Caprio interrupted gently. "It won't affect my judgment." Brittany leaned toward her lawyer, her whisper carrying to the first row. "This is ridiculous. Daddy said this would be handled." What Brittany didn't know was that her father had already submitted a statement to the court. The document was brief and devastating. "I am requesting that my daughter receive no special consideration. She must face the same justice as any citizen. I will not intervene." In the back corner, Chief Holloway's jaw tightened. His daughter believed he was making calls, pulling strings, making the problem disappear, as he always had. She was profoundly wrong. "Miss Holloway," Judge Caprio continued, "please tell the court your version of events." Brittany straightened, her testimony rehearsed and confident. "I was driving to brunch with friends. I was running late. I saw an open handicap spot near the restaurant. Do you have a handicap permit? No, but I was only going to be there for an hour. The spot wasn't really being used. This man was just sitting there blocking the space. He was parked in the space legally, Miss Holloway. He has handicapped plates. Well, I didn't know that. I asked him politely to move, and he became hostile. Define hostile. He raised his hand at me. I thought he was going to hit me, so I defended myself. You struck him across the face. I pushed him away. It was self-defense. In the front row, Billy Crawford closed his eyes. Sergeant, his service dog, pressed closer to the wheelchair, responding to the subtle changes in his handler's breathing and heart rate that indicated rising stress. Miss Holloway, the judge said, you stated the spot wasn't being used. The man was in a wheelchair, in a handicap spot, loading something into his vehicle. I didn't see him loading anything. You didn't see the flowers? Brittany hesitated. What flowers? Judge Caprio consulted the evidence file. Item number 7. 1 bouquet of pink roses, recovered from the ground beside the victim's vehicle. Petals scattered across pavement. The responding officer noted that Mr. Crawford stated the flowers were for his daughter's grave. He visits every Saturday. The courtroom absorbed this information in silence. Brittany's confidence wavered. The court calls Marcus Chen. A man in his 40s approached the witness stand. Software engineer, calm demeanor, methodical in his recollection. Mr. Chen, you witnessed this incident? I did, Your Honor. I was parked 2 spaces away, answering emails in my car. I observed the entire confrontation. Please describe what you saw. Marcus Chen took a breath. The gentleman in the wheelchair, Mr. Crawford, was loading flowers into his car. Pink roses. He was taking his time because of his disability. Then a white BMW pulled up behind him and started honking. The driver, the defendant, got out and started yelling at him to move. What specifically did she say? She said, "Move your chair, I need this spot." When he tried to explain he was almost done, she called him a... Marcus paused, glancing at the judge. She used a profane insult referring to disabled persons. Deputy Thomas McKenna, standing near the wall, curled his hand into a fist. His son was currently deployed in Afghanistan. What happened next, Mr. Chen? Mr. Crawford didn't respond to the insult. He simply tried to wheel himself toward the driver's side of his car to leave. But she grabbed his wheelchair, grabbed the handle, and yanked it backward. He raised his arm clearly to catch his balance. That's when she slapped him. I've never seen anything like it, Marcus continued, his voice tight with anger. This man didn't say a single hostile word. He tried to leave. She wouldn't let him. Then she struck him and called him pathetic. I'm still angry thinking about it. Brittany had gone pale. He's lying. That's not what happened. We have video evidence, Miss Holloway. Would you like us to play it again? She said nothing. Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Walsh approached the bench. Your Honor, I'd like to play the full video evidence for the court. The screen flickered to life. The footage was shaky but clear enough to be damning. Billy Crawford in his wheelchair, one hand on the wheels, attempting to move away. Brittany blocking his path, her voice sharp and entitled. Where do you think you're going? I'm talking to you. Billy's voice, quiet and exhausted. Ma'am, I'm just trying to leave. Please don't ma'am me. People like you think you can just take up space wherever you want. I'm parked here legally. I have plates. I don't care about your plates. I care that you're in my way. She grabbed the wheelchair handle. He raised his hand defensively, clearly off balance. She slapped him hard. His head snapped to the side. His Marine Corps cap fell to the wet pavement. She kicked it, the motion deliberate and contemptuous. Pathetic. Then She walked back to her BMW, checked her reflection in the window, and drove away. Billy Crawford sat motionless for almost a minute afterward. Then slowly, he wheeled himself to his cap. He picked it up and held it against his chest as if protecting something sacred. The video ended. No one in the courtroom moved. In the back row, Chief Holloway's head dropped into his hands. The man who had commanded a police force for 12 years was crying silently. Judge Caprio removed his glasses and cleaned them slowly. "Self-defense, Miss Holloway." She had no answer. "Before we continue," the judge said, "I believe the court needs to understand who Mr. Crawford is." He opened a personnel file. William James Crawford, born 1978, Providence, Rhode Island. Enlisted in the United States Marine Corps at age 18. Served 2 tours in Afghanistan, 2008 to 2009, and 2010 to 2011. On March 14, 2011, Sergeant First Class Crawford's convoy was struck by an improvised explosive device outside Kandahar. The explosion killed 2 of his fellow Marines instantly. Crawford survived but sustained catastrophic injuries, including traumatic amputation of both lower limbs. The judge read from the military citation. Despite his injuries, Sergeant First Class Crawford maintained fire discipline and provided suppressive cover for 11 minutes, enabling the evacuation of 3 wounded personnel. His actions reflect the highest traditions of the Marine Corps. He was awarded the Purple Heart for his wounds. He was also awarded the Bronze Star with Valor. After losing both legs, while bleeding in the dirt, he provided covering fire that allowed 3 wounded Marines to be evacuated. He saved their lives. The courtroom was completely silent. After his medical discharge, Mr. Crawford returned to Providence. He works part-time at Henderson's Hardware. He volunteers at the VA hospital, teaching woodworking to other disabled veterans. By all accounts, he's a quiet, dignified man who asks nothing from anyone. Judge Caprio looked directly at Brittany, and on October 26th, this man was slapped across the face in a parking lot by a young woman who called him pathetic. Brittany stared at Billy Crawford now, really seeing him for the first time. The patches on his jacket, the Purple Heart pin, the Bronze Star, the empty space below his knees. I didn't know. Would it have mattered, Miss Holloway? Would you have treated him differently if you'd known he was a war hero? Or would you have still seen just a man in a wheelchair, in your way, occupying a parking spot you wanted? She had no answer. "Mr. Crawford," Judge Caprio said gently, "would you like to address the court?" For the first time, Billy looked up. "Yes, Your Honor, I would." Billy Crawford wheeled himself to the front of the courtroom. Sergeant walked beside him, tail low, pressed close to the wheelchair. He positioned himself facing Judge Caprio, not Brittany. "Mr. Crawford, can you tell us why you were in that parking lot?" Billy was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was steady but soft. "I was visiting my daughter, Your Honor." "Your daughter?" "Emma. Emma Rose Crawford. She's buried at St. Michael's Cemetery." The parking lot where this happened is right next to the cemetery entrance. Someone in the gallery inhaled sharply. "I visit her every Saturday. Have for 7 years. I bring her flowers, pink roses. They were her favorite." The cemetery was visible from the courtroom windows, if you knew where to look. Billy kept glancing toward it. "Can you tell us about Emma?" Billy's hand tightened on the wheel of his chair. "She was 6 when she died, leukemia. I was deployed when she got really sick. I tried to get home. The Red Cross, my commanding officer. Everyone tried to get me back, but it happened fast." His voice caught slightly. "I was in a helicopter over Kandahar when she passed. I never made it home in time. I never got to say goodbye. My wife couldn't handle it. The grief, my injuries, all of it together. She left 2 years after I got back. I don't blame her. Some things are too heavy to carry together." So now it's just me and Sargent, and every Saturday, I bring Emma her flowers. I sit with her. I tell her about my week. I tell her I'm sorry I wasn't there." He paused, looking at the wilted roses on the bench. "That day, October 26th, I was loading the roses into my car. I was going to drive around to the cemetery entrance. It's easier than wheeling across the grass. And then that woman started honking, screaming at me. She called me a slur. She said people like me shouldn't be out in public. I didn't say anything back. What's the point? I just tried to leave. But she grabbed my chair. I lost my balance. I raised my hand to steady myself, and she hit me." His voice cracked, just slightly. "My cap fell off. My Marine Corps cap. I've had it since boot camp. She kicked it into a puddle. But that's not what hurt. What hurt is that I never made it to Emma that day. By the time the police came, by the time I gave my statement, visiting hours were over. The cemetery was closed. I missed my Saturday with my daughter because a woman wanted my parking spot." Billy Crawford's service dog put his head on Billy's lap. Half the gallery was crying. A voice came from the back of the courtroom. "Your Honor, may I address the court?" Everyone turned. Robert Holloway stood slowly, gray suit, no uniform, no visible badge. Brittany's face went white. "Daddy, be quiet, Brittany." He walked forward with heavy, deliberate steps, like a man carrying enormous weight. "Your Honor, I'm Robert Holloway, Chief of the Providence Police Department. I know who you are. Chief, I'm not here as the police chief. I'm here as a father who failed, and as a veteran who needs to apologize to a fellow veteran." He reached into his jacket and removed his badge. He set it on the clerk's desk. "I don't want this to influence anything. I'm just a man today." Chief Holloway faced Billy Crawford. "Mr. Crawford, I served 2 tours in Vietnam, 1969 to 1971, 101st Airborne. I know what it costs. I know what you gave. And my daughter called you a slur. She struck you. She kicked your cap in the mud. A cap that means something. A cap you earned." His voice broke. "I am sorry, not as a police chief. As one veteran to another, as a man to a man. I am deeply, profoundly sorry." Billy looked at him for a long moment. "You served in Vietnam?" "Yes, sir." "Then you know." "I know." "Welcome home, Chief." Nobody said it enough back then. Robert Holloway's composure shattered. Tears ran down his face. "Thank you. Thank you." "Mr. Crawford," Chief Holloway continued, "I failed my daughter. I protected her from every consequence her whole life. Every speeding ticket, every complaint, every time she acted like the rules didn't apply. I made it go away. I created this." He turned to Judge Caprio. "I'm not asking for leniency, Your Honor. I'm asking for the opposite. She needs to understand what she did. I couldn't teach her. Maybe you can." Brittany was shaking. "Daddy, why are you doing this? Why won't you help me?" "Because I've helped you too much, Brittany. That's why we're here. I didn't know he was a veteran. I didn't know about his daughter. How was I supposed to know?" Judge Caprio's voice was quiet, but firm. "Miss Holloway, that's precisely the problem. You didn't know, and you didn't care. You saw a man in a wheelchair and decided he was less than you. His service didn't matter. His dignity didn't matter. His reason for being there didn't matter. Nothing mattered except that he was in your way. I'm not a bad person. I don't think you are. I think you're someone who was never taught that other people are real, that they have lives and losses and stories you know nothing about. You looked at William Crawford and saw an obstacle. You didn't see a man who served his country, lost his legs, lost his daughter, and still gets up every day and tries to live with dignity. That's not evil, Miss Holloway. It's something almost worse. It's blindness. And blindness can be cured, but only if you want to see." Brittany looked at Billy Crawford, really looked at him. The patches. The empty space where his legs should be. The dog pressed against his side. The wilted pink roses. "Those flowers," she whispered. "They were for his daughter." "Yes." "And I made him miss visiting her." "Yes." "Oh, God!" Her voice broke. "Oh, God, what did I do?" She was crying now. Not performance tears. The ugly, gasping sobs of someone finally seeing themselves clearly. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't see." "I'm sorry." Billy Crawford watched her cry, his face unreadable. "Mr. Crawford," Judge Caprio asked, "would you like to respond?" Billy was quiet for a long moment. Then he wheeled himself forward, closer to Brittany. "Miss Holloway, look at me." She raised her tear-streaked face. "I've been through things you can't imagine. I've watched friends die. I've felt my legs leave my body. I've buried my daughter. I've sat alone in hospital rooms wondering why I survived when better men didn't. You know what I learned from all that." She shook her head. "Anger is heavy, too heavy to carry. I put it down a long time ago because I had to. It was killing me. What you did, it hurt, not the slap. The slap was nothing, I've had worse. What hurt was being seen as less than human, being called pathetic by someone who's never sacrificed anything. But I'm not going to carry anger toward you. I don't have room. I've got too much else to carry." His voice softened. "Emma always said, 'Be nice, Daddy.' Even when she was sick, even when she was scared, she'd hold my hand and say, 'Be nice.' I'm trying, baby, I'm still trying." "I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, because I need to, because Emma wouldn't want me to be angry. She was 6 years old and had more grace than most adults I've ever met. But forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting, and it's not the same as saying it was okay. It wasn't okay. What you did was wrong. You need to understand that. Really understand it. So whatever Judge Caprio decides, I'll accept it. Not because I want revenge. Because you need to learn something I hope you never forget." He wheeled back to his spot. Sargent immediately pressed against him. The courtroom was silent. Brittany was still crying, but something had shifted. The defensiveness was gone. Judge Caprio removed his glasses and set them on the bench. "I'm ready to deliver my sentence. Miss Holloway, please stand." Brittany stood, her legs unsteady. Her lawyer didn't make closing arguments. "I've been on this bench for 40 years, Judge Caprio began. "I've given thousands of sentences, fines, community service, jail time, the usual tools of justice. But this case isn't usual, and the usual tools aren't enough. I find you guilty of simple assault, harassment, and disorderly conduct. Here is my sentence. First, 18 months probation. Any violation, any arrest, any confrontation, any hint that you haven't learned, and you go directly to jail for 90 days. Second, a fine of $2,500. This money will be donated directly to the Rhode Island Disabled Veterans Fund. You will write the check yourself. Third, 300 hours of community service at the Providence VA Hospital in the physical rehabilitation ward. You will work with veterans who are learning to walk again, learning to live again. You will help them. You will learn from them. And you will never again look at a disabled veteran and see someone pathetic. Fourth, you will complete a 40-hour educational course on military service and veteran issues. You will pass a written examination. Fifth, you will write a 5,000-word research paper on the challenges facing disabled veterans in America. This paper will be reviewed by Mr. William Crawford before submission. If he finds it insufficient, you will revise it until he accepts it. Sixth, and I want you to listen carefully, you will visit St. Michael's Cemetery with Mr. Crawford once. You will stand at his daughter Emma's grave. You will place flowers there, and you will understand what you interrupted. Brittany's breath caught. You will see where a father goes every Saturday to talk to the daughter he never got to say goodbye to. And you will understand that the man you called pathetic has more courage, more dignity, and more humanity than you have shown in your entire life. Finally, you and your father will attend 6 sessions of family counseling together. You became this way for a reason. Your father needs to understand his role. You need to understand yours. Return to this court in 90 days with a written apology for Mr. Crawford. He has full discretion to accept or reject it. If he rejects it, you will write it again. The gavel fell. Brittany Holloway returned to Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom, looking different. Not just her clothes, simpler now, practical, but something in her face. The hardness was gone. The entitlement had softened into something more uncertain, more searching. Billy Crawford was there. So was Chief Holloway. And in the front row, a group of veterans from the VA hospital had come to watch. "Miss Holloway," Judge Caprio said, "I've received reports from the VA hospital. Tell me about your time there." "The first week, I didn't want to be there. I thought I was being punished. I kept waiting for it to be over." "What changed?" "I met a man named James, 23 years old, IED in Iraq. He lost an arm and most of his vision. And I watched him try to learn to tie his shoes again for an hour. He didn't give up. He didn't complain. He just kept trying." Her voice broke. "And I thought I slapped a man like this. I called a man like this pathetic. I kicked his hat in the mud. I went to the bathroom and cried for 20 minutes. I wrote the paper, 5,000 words on what disabled veterans face when they come home." Mr. Crawford read it and sent it back with pages of notes. Things I got wrong, things I didn't understand. I rewrote the whole thing. I learned more in that revision than in 4 years of college. She turned to Billy. "We went to the cemetery last Saturday. Mr. Crawford showed me Emma's grave. He told me about her, how she loved pink, how she laughed at everything, how she used to put her hands on his face when he was sad. He let me place the flowers down, pink roses. And I understood. I finally understood what I took from him that day. It wasn't a parking spot, it was time with his daughter. And you can't get that back." She was crying again. "I'm sorry, Mr. Crawford, I'm so sorry." Billy Crawford nodded slowly. "Miss Holloway," Judge Caprio said, "do you have the letter?" "Yes, Your Honor." She pulled out a handwritten letter, pages of it. "Mr. Crawford, you have full discretion to accept or reject this." Billy wheeled forward and took the letter. He didn't read it there, not in front of everyone. "I'll read it at Emma's grave next Saturday. I think she'd like to hear it." Brittany's face crumpled with gratitude. "Thank you. Thank you." Chief Holloway stood. "Your Honor, may I say something?" "Go ahead, Chief." "My daughter and I have been in counseling 6 sessions so far. We're going to keep going. I've learned things about myself I didn't want to see. I protected her because it was easier than parenting her. I made problems disappear because I had the power to. I raised a daughter who didn't know how to face consequences because I never let her." He turned to Billy. "Mr. Crawford, I'd like to invite you to dinner at our home if you'd be willing. I want my daughter to see me treat you with the respect you deserve, veteran to veteran." Billy considered this. "I'll bring the burgers. You provide the grill." For the first time in the entire proceeding, someone almost smiled. Judge Caprio picked up his gavel. "Miss Holloway, I'm closing this case. You've completed your sentence, more than completed it. But I want you to remember something. The man you slapped in a parking lot could have demanded jail time. He could have demanded maximum punishment. He had every right. Instead, he gave you grace. He forgave you before you deserved it. That's what a hero looks like. Not the medals, not the citations. The character. Don't waste what he gave you." "I won't, Your Honor, I promise." The gavel fell. In a Providence courtroom, a young woman who had never faced a consequence learned something that no fine or jail time could have taught her: that the people we dismiss, the people we see as obstacles, the people we call pathetic, they carry stories we know nothing about. They carry sacrifices we can't imagine. They carry losses that would break most of us. Billy Crawford lost his legs for his country. He lost his daughter while defending strangers overseas. He lost his wife to grief, too heavy to share. And when a young woman slapped him in a parking lot and called him pathetic, he responded with the only thing he had left: grace. That's not weakness. That's the strongest thing a human being can do. This is a dramatization created for storytelling and educational purposes.